Hmm.
Todd and Rob in the afternoon.
Afternoon delight.
With Todd and Rob. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, here we are. Here we are for another edition of the New Media Show. Welcome to the show, Rob. How you been?
I'm doing terrific, Todd. Yeah, everything's great. Summer's here and it's warm out. It doesn't get too much better than that.
That's right. And, I'm going to take the show on the road starting next week. Of course, you said you might be out next week, right?
Yeah, I'm going to be out in Los Angeles doing a panel session or two at the Outlier podcasting conference in Los Angeles. So,
all right.
18th and 19th. So I'll be out of the pocket on the 17th. I'll be flying.
All right. So then we'll just skip next week and we'll be back the following. And I will be remote. So we'll probably do it via StreamYard on that event. So a few weeks on the road for me. So.
You mean after the 17th? So the 24th?
Yeah, all the way through about the 9th. So the next 2, 3, 4 shows will not be produced here in the studio. I'll have my trusty Rodecaster. I'll have my laptop, another laptop, and be far and wide. So it is what it is.
So is it possible for us to bring a guest in on the 24th?
Probably on StreamYard. I wouldn't see why not.
Okay.
So
that'd be great. I've got the head of content for the podcast show is gonna join us on the 24th, which is the first day of the event.
All right.
In London. So.
Oh, nice. So they'll be joining us late in the day there then, huh?
It'll be like 8:00 their time. So the first day will have been over.
Right. So. Oh, awesome. Well, it should be interesting to get the details.
Yeah.
So, Rob.
Yes.
I don't know if it's directed at us, but it might have been. It sounded like it was. I guess you and I are gatekeepers. We are gatekeepers for not believing in open RSS and that podcasts are better if it's defined more broadly.
Well, I think, there's a little bit of subtleties here. There was that comment made on Twitter the last couple of days that somehow if you're not open to a variety of definitions on what a podcast is somehow you're a gatekeeper. So I thought it was a little bit of a revolutionary thought that anybody that felt podcasting by definition was distribution of content by RSS feed was somehow being a gatekeeper. So I'm not quite sure that I entirely agree with that sentiment, though I think you and I are both 100% in favor of taking podcast content, making it available everywhere. So let's not confuse the issue of us being, or folks that are maybe a little bit seen more as purists in the podcasting space, that a podcast is content that's distributed by RSS feed, as being any kind of a limitation of any sort around how this content can be distributed, and the perception, honestly, of listeners and viewers of this content. You look at what YouTube is doing.
Or what they're not doing.
They're labeling, which hopefully we'll be able to talk to a little bit, that they're labeling anything really that's on YouTube, that if the content creator wants to label as a podcast, they can label it as a podcast. It really, there is no content definition on what a podcast is on YouTube.
No.
If it's a video, they say it's cool to call it a podcast.
I think what it really boils down to in the end is we care that podcasters
know
what a podcast is and what a podcast isn't. And for someone to suggest that a podcast can be, to a podcaster, something that exists outside of RSS on a gated community platform
Right.
we have to question, is this coming a company directive? Is the owner of the company saying we want to make sure that we are starting to embrace true gatekeeping systems and try to de-emphasize RSS? You know, I get super suspicious when anyone says that someone that's technically knows what a podcast is starts trying to say that RSS is somehow open. RSS is somehow a gatekeeper. That is insane, in my opinion.
Yeah. I'm not really sure that's what the intent of the comment was. I think it was more that we should be open to alternatives types of distribution for podcast content.
As long as that content, originates and is available via an RSS feed, I'm cool. I think, like, granted, he's got a big show, that big behemoth over on Spotify, but he is no longer technically a podcast. He is on a platform that is ultimate gatekeeper. Now, by contract, and he is been paid big money to be over there. Mm-hmm. So, by choice, he chose to lock his content behind a gate that requires a sole app to be able to get to it. That is not a podcast anymore. That is a show on Spotify in a technical sense. Listeners don't care, right? The listeners don't give two hoots.
I think it's the same thing that happened to Howard Stern when he decided to leave terrestrial radio and move over to Sirius radio,
sure, right?
Satellite radio. I'm not sure when he made that shift that he really should have been called a radio broadcaster, because it wasn't on the traditional radio airwaves.
Well, they call it the Howard Stern show,
right? And that's part of what I think he would. The person that said this was meaning was as we think about podcast content, we need to be open to other types of ways that it can be distributed, audiences can be engaged with. But you and I've tried to be very clear on this, and I think that others need to, maybe be reassured on the clarity on this, is that we agree that the content can be made available in a variety of different platforms. And that's what the content creator needs to understand, is that if it's a podcast, it needs to have RSS feed. If you want to make content that's only available on YouTube or only available in TikTok, it really is not a podcast. And you really are making a mistake by calling it that. Though I think that there's this confusion that happens that if a show is made with the intent of making it a podcast, but it's also available on YouTube and TikTok or on Twitter, just like what we're doing with this show,
sure,
that the content that we're making available on Twitter live is somehow a podcast. It actually isn't. It's a streaming show on a streaming viewing platform. Right.
It is. Yep.
So does this mean that, Tucker Carlson decided that he was going to do his new show on Twitter, that Tucker should call that show on Twitter a podcast?
Well, he's not.
That's the question that's raised here, is that why are we having to necessarily blend these concepts together into a mishmash that means nothing?
I think part of it is we need to go back and understand, in the context of podcasting, what a gatekeeper is. So let's just forget it's 2023.
Right.
Let's go back in the time machine in 2004, when we couldn't do any of this that we're doing right now. Around this time, if let's say this is May of 2024, there would have been no way I could have got on iTunes. No way I could have got on Microsoft. No way I could have gotten on any platform that was out there that was any type of a media platform at the time without signing my life away, contract rights, 82 pages of BS. It would not have happened. Would have been vetted. You would have been like, who are you? If you're not a celebrity, not going to happen. October 2004, around that time when things started to really kick off. What did you need? An RSS feed hosted somewhere, most at that time on your own website. And all of a sudden, you could be anywhere, consumed by anyone at any time through a new syndication model. July of 2005, all of a sudden, we're now available on Apple iTunes. Progress forward. Here we are today. All major platforms that ingest podcast today do it from an RSS feed.
Right.
Except for YouTube.
And that's video today.
Right. Right now, it's video.
Which is not the most common type of content that's distributed as a podcast.
So the situation is such that if we have the most open, last bastion of free speech medium that's in existence. So if you're on YouTube as a pure YouTuber, you can be deplatformed and taken off and you can't say nothing. If you're on Rumble and you're creating content, you can be removed and you can do nothing about it. If you're on Instagram, you can be removed and there's nothing you can do about it. If you're on Twitter, you can be removed and there's nothing you can do about it. You can be on every platform there is in existence that is owned by a third party and you can be removed. Now, let's take some additional steps here. If you are on Apple Podcast and you are removed, guess what? So what? You still are online. You still are available. You still can be syndicated. You still can be consumed. Why? Because you got an RSS feed that is your radio transmitter tower. This is the epitome of open from a technical standpoint and a real standpoint. Go ahead and put your stuff on YouTube and say something outlandish and see how fast you get removed from YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So let's be very careful on what we classify as a gatekeeper of content, not a gate. We're talking about two different things here. Now, that's technical, but if you want to consume this podcast on YouTube, please do. You want to consume this content on Twitch? Please do. You want to consume this content on Twitter? Please do. We don't care. But if I piss Elon Musk off and get kicked off Twitter, guess what? We live another day.
Right. Yeah, I think I agree with you, Todd. I think playing up the strengths of this medium, though I will say that there are some movements afoot in the industry that I've seen over the last couple of days that give me a little bit of pause around some interest in content moderation in the podcasting space increasingly. These brand safety platforms and stuff are pushing the envelope on this. It's not just around advertising.
Right. I know.
I think that there is some interest that we may see on the part of some of the bigger platforms, the bigger listening platforms, to adopt some of these technologies. And I do think that may come to pass, which will bring content moderation more to podcasting than what we see today.
So guess what's going to happen? Let's say your content gets moderated because you say the simple word, "we're screwed." Now, by me saying that in this show, GARM considers that a swear word. And all of a sudden, this show became not brand safe by the AI bots that are going to be looking at this content and looking for keywords and phrases that it doesn't like. And while that doesn't affect a lot of podcasters today, because that's usually associated to advertising, but when they, like you said, Rob, when they start using this tech on platforms, so let's remove that episode because we might offend somebody. Well, then podcasters are going to start realizing what this word gatekeeper really means, and maybe they should start considering telling their podcast listeners to get off these platforms and get on an app that isn't going to moderate them or censor them.
Right. Well, we haven't had to do that with podcasting per se. This concept has been with us for a long time on places like Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, these major social media platforms. Now, increasingly, Twitter is backing off on that content filtering, moderation stuff, but YouTube and Facebook are still
hot and heavy.
Right. So podcasting has been, to date, the only other major medium that does not have active content moderation technology running on it.
So let me just leave it this. So to me, they can do whatever they want to do. If these platforms, whatever their letters are, whatever their big platforms are, the 800-pound gorillas, if they want to put their thumb on podcasters' content and moderate and censor what they feel is not brand safe for their platform, more power to them. Go ahead, knock yourself out. Because then those that call us thinking that we're creating a monopoly because we have open RSS, which is insane, might sit back and go, now we know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And guess what? If they're going to do that, then podcasters are going to start telling their audiences, if they are smart, don't use that app. Don't use that platform. They're moderating and censoring me because I said a word or two or had a topic that they were uncomfortable with that set off their little alarm. I've seen some tech, and I'm not going to name the company, but I said, why did this? Because I was running my episodes through it just to look at the test. Why is my content being flagged as dangerous? And I said the word screwed. That was what because I said, I don't swear in my show. Last time I checked, is screwed a swear word?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, so I guess in their bubble of information, we're screwed, you're screwed. I didn't say getting screwed. I said, context is important, right? Mm-hmm. So, and it flagged that content as harmful. People have lost their mind.
Yeah, that's the dangers of the world that we're coming into, and I think increasingly we all need to be aware of what we're giving up here.
We're not giving up nothing.
Well, no, but the potential is there.
Well,
if these technologies get fully deployed, don't be surprised if we have the same experience as what we have currently on YouTube.
I have
fully to podcasting.
At least 2 to 3 emails a week from companies reaching out to me. Hey, we'd like to be your moderator of all your content on your platform. And I'm like, I have no, go away. I have no need for your service.
Well, increasingly, the desire to have advertising is the kind of Trojan horse for this.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
You know what? Then at some point, you're going to end up with 10 shows that say nothing controversial that will have advertising in it. So great. The value for value model works. If you can't say within reason what you want to, no, if you can't say what you want to say in your show, if you're constraining yourself because you're afraid you're going to offend your advertisers, that sucks.
Well, this is already happening with content creators on YouTube.
Well, we know that.
Right. So people are doing half their show. I've said this on the show before. People are doing half their show on YouTube and the other half on Rumble.
So it's
crazy that they have to do that, but that's the world we live in.
Well, I think the average podcaster, the 97%, and I came to a little bit of a realization the other day. I was doing some things and reviewing some content of some brand new podcasters. I was going out listening to some brand new shows, episode 1.
Mm-hmm.
And they have, I'm very enlightened and very happy. We just got a boost and it didn't come across in the 10,000 sats from Adam Curry. Thank you very much. Advertising equals censorship. Exactly. So I was listening to these brand new shows, and what I have come to realize is the podcasting spirit is alive and well.
Yeah.
People are creating great creative content. They're creating content without worrying about what Todd and Rob and others in the Twitter ecosphere and what the podcast gurus and gods are saying. They could give 2 beeps. They're creating content for them, for the audience that they want to reach, and full steam ahead. So
and that's what we want.
That's right.
Totally.
That's what we want. And people are getting down in the weeds with what it is companies have something to sell. We have created a technology that will look at the audio of a podcast. We are going to make your life better and make your brand safer if you spend $10,000 a month with us so that we can analyze your audio and tell you what is unsafe for content that you've already been monetizing for years.
Right.
If someone has got something to sell and they've sold a bill of goods, Adam, you're going to love this. You got he's already termed this. You got the military industrial complex, and you got the podcasting industrial complex, and the podcasting industrial complex is made up of all these companies that are trying to make our life better and make our listeners safer. Why can't the listeners just have a choice?
Well, that's what both of us are in favor is that
Right.
the listener can do whatever the heck they want to do. They can call this whatever they want to call it. They want to call a YouTube video a podcast.
No. Now, hang on, Rob. Back up. Why doesn't the listeners get a chance of what they want to listen to? If they want to listen to somebody that swears, cusses, and has a sailor language and has conspiracy theories, why not?
Right. No, I agree with that.
Why not?
If you don't like it, just don't listen to it.
It's like you want me to put all these extra. You want me to pay you to censor my customers? Can you think about that sell coming to me? You want to sell me a service that I'm going to look at my content and I'm saying, oh, that's scary. Let's remove that.
The thinking behind it is that those shows that are considered brand safe are going to get more money.
Well,
right?
I'll be out of business.
I know.
I will be out of business. If I told my customers, oh yeah, we're scanning your content and any little cuss word you have, we're going to be putting a flag on your content, there would be a mass exodus. from my company. People would leave in droves.
And that's actually a good result. Actually, if you think about it from a big picture standpoint, right? That's we kind of want podcasters to have those kind of values. Or
Wait, hold on, Rob. Here, what are you saying?
I'm saying is that we want podcasters that value free speech.
Yes.
And if a platform adopts this technology, they turn and leave and go to somewhere else, whether it's an alternative economy or an alternative platform that isn't adopting this technology.
I can't wait. Some of my competitors says we've adopted some censorship tool. Cannot wait. Please be
a shift.
Please advertise that for me.
Right.
We've adopted stuff to check for brand safety. Please tell me that.
But
I'll tweet that.
Todd, we have been, and I do feel this tension between those in the industry that are all in on advertising. Right?
Oh yeah.
And they're all in on every little aspect of advertising, and that's what this whole industry, as far as they're concerned, that's what the industry is all about.
That's all there is. Because guess what?
Right.
That's how they're paying their bills.
Right. It's all about money.
Right.
It's all about revenue and bringing in, and this medium is to some degree by some is demonized because this medium was started with an anti-commercialism perspective.
They don't know that though. Most don't know that.
We have moved a long ways down that path of accepting commercialism in podcasting. And I think you and I, Todd, are open to that as long as it's not done in a way that's punitive towards the podcaster.
Every podcaster has a choice on what they want to do with their show. If they want to monetize it with advertising and be subjected to their content being analyzed and have feedback loops to say, you can't say this because you're upsetting the advertiser, that's the choice they make.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm okay with advertising. Don't get the wrong impression.
I got an advertiser for my
okay
show
with
too.
Advertising, but let's not weaponize it against creators. And that's kind of maybe the direction that we're going.
I had a very unique relationship I still have a very unique relationship with GoDaddy. Mm-hmm. And they have never, ever come back to me, ever. And the entire time of the relationship said, hey, maybe you shouldn't have said that. There was times I was critical on some things they did, but I did it in a politically constructive way, of which I had already provided them feedback about my displeasure, whatever it was. This was in some of the early days of some of the things that Parson did. And they never came back and said, you can't say that. Matter of fact, prior to the sponsorship I had with them, I had railed them in 2 episodes about, this is back in early 2004. I'd railed them on a virtual private, virtual VNC machine. It was a piece of junk. And I told them it was a piece of junk. And ultimately they got rid of that product and I went to a dedicated server and, but it was not a great product. And I told them, before they were a sponsor. So when they came to me and said, we want to sponsor the show, I said, well, you better go listen to these 2 episodes where I rail on you guys. And they still decided to sponsor me. And they were open to being, now, I'm not going to go out and bash every episode my sponsor. That would be stupidity, right? But that
was done in the early days of podcasting.
Well,
right.
But I have never had to censor the only time, I tell you what I had, when I was active duty in the military,
mm-hmm.
I had to censor myself. Just because there was some stuff that was like, oh, better not talk about that. So that was a different situation. That was a job situation. That was my livelihood, JOB, get a paycheck, not go to jail type of thing, right? Yeah. So that was a different reason I had to censor, but I've never censored my content because of a sponsor. Now, there are some shows, I am sure, have to be very, very careful in what they say
Well, I do remember a time in this country where advertising and content were kept purposely separated from each other,
right?
right? Where the editorial team had no influence from the commercial side.
Well, that all changed when pharma started advertising on TV and advertising in major news network television shows, and anything that was revolving around pharma was a non-topic. You couldn't talk bad about A, B, C, D, E, F, G companies. That happened during COVID too. They're spending all that money. You can't say anything bad about the pharma because they're spending billions of dollars in advertising. So
it's the moneyed influence that's
right.
happening in media.
They've censored themselves. So you can't talk about that.
Yeah.
So
and really do stories that promote.
I think ultimately, though,
advertisers.
What will happen
is
thing
that's going on.
Podcasters are going to say what they're going to say. The majority of them, even those with advertising, and they may not have deals renewed because of what they have said. And they may never know because some stupid system put 3 red flags in an episode because they said screwed.
There are some shows out there, Todd, and I've heard this, that are being looked at with these platforms that the shows may not know that that's going on.
Oh, I completely believe it. If you're part of a network, you can almost be guaranteed. If you're participating in network deals, you can be guaranteed your content is being looked at. Absolutely. I've seen examples. I've had salesmen show me shows that they are scanning.
Right, and that may impact the amount of deal flow that comes into your program, and you may not even know that it's having an impact on it.
Well, again, I hope, and fingers crossed here, that podcasters will be able to say what they want to say, and that advertisers will start to get a little bit thicker skin.
Yep.
If they're so worried about brand safety, or whatever they're calling it these days, then just quit advertising.
Brand suitability.
Then just quit advertising. Go home. Take your money and go home. Go.
It's going to drive more and more people to paid relationships with audiences, and I think that could be more and more in even the value for value platform. It could drive more people to utilize those tools versus advertising.
Just value for value is not a platform. Value for value is a content creation, a listener relationship model.
Yeah, but as far as a listener is concerned, they view it as a exchange or a payment method of some sort. Right. So
and we love value for value here. PayPal, Satoshi's via Boost on one of those cool new modern podcast apps at podcastapps.com. Yeah, I got that in there, but it's start off and my hair was just a little bit on fire because I didn't listen to that Twitter thread until literally 5 minutes before the show. And I listened to it about 5 times, let it loop.
It's a little bit confusing.
I don't care. Again, for the 5 beeping billionth time. If you want to listen, wherever you want to listen, wherever podcasts are consumed, good.
So Todd, on May 5th, there was a post made in Pod News. Thanks, James. About YouTube, right?
Yeah.
And that was after we did last week's show.
Yeah.
So this article came out afterwards. The headline was YouTube numbers not doing so well.
You just go through and look. You can see it.
Well, I'm not surprised. You know, I think the industry was kind of deceived by the impact of YouTube.
They weren't deceived.
for many years by the research.
They weren't deceived.
Well,
They didn't
I
do
think
their
they
own
weren't.
they didn't do their own research.
Well, Todd, the surveys came out saying that, that YouTube was like the second most popular place that people are finding podcasts, right? That it's not
for shows that have been made purposely for YouTube.
Right. Yeah. So far, YouTube's a flop. Boy, that's a big surprise.
It's a big statement.
Right.
I remember talking about looking at the top 200 shows and others throughout YouTube and saying, where's the beef?
Yeah. Yeah.
There are some, but
that's not to say that YouTube doesn't have the potential of helping podcasting.
Right.
I think it does, but I still think we're a little ways off on what YouTube has done to grow podcasting.
I love it that they spent a whole bunch of money and got sucked in hook, line, and sinker to bring on a bunch of producers to create YouTube-ready content, and it's a FLOP. And guess what? Out there for the public to see, because you can't hide your stats in YouTube.
Well, this particular article by Ashley Carmen with Bloomberg was specifically referring to the shows from NPR and Slate.
That's right.
So these are even large media company.
Oh, I know.
Content is flopping on YouTube.
I know.
Right. So, it's
at some point, people will realize that there's an infinite more, how do I want to say this? There's infinitely more time to listen than there is to watch.
Yeah, and this primarily is video, is what we're talking about here.
I consume my fair share of YouTube,
right?
But I can guarantee you not a single one of those things I consume on YouTube is podcast content.
Right.
Personally.
Right. There's a lot of very popular shows on YouTube. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying, but 99% of them are not what I would consider to be podcasts. They look like a podcast. They sound like a podcast. They aren't necessarily produced like a podcast because they use terms like subscribe and hit the like button.
They have
terms that are usually used in a podcast.
They have studios that make this little thing I have created here look like a Cracker Jack box.
Well,
they have big sprawling studios with 5-6 people and a big set and multiple cameras, people switching. It is a production. Looks beautiful.
Yeah, I agree. There's example after example of shows that I watch over there and I've seen over there for years that do exactly what you say, Todd. They have like maybe 2 or 3 cameras that are filming their guest in a studio together, and they have various camera shots that change position. And that's not what we do here.
I can switch. I can switch the view. I can change. We can do that. We can do this. And do that. We can do that. We can do lots of things. We don't.
But that's not what this show's about.
No,
this show's about really more about audio. So, but I'm starting to do a show now that's a video on YouTube as well as an audio podcast. So I'm trying to learn and do these things myself to see where that nexus is. Is there a way to grow a show,
an
audio show in podcasting at the same time you grow a show on YouTube? So, I think that is a helpful exercise to go through and see if it's possible. I don't know that it's possible to be successful in both places with the same content. So
I don't know. My consumption of YouTube is yachters, people that live van life. They're building projects in their home. They live in the wilderness. Expats.
Right.
It runs 100 some plus channels. I don't watch maybe 20 of them on a regular basis. truck drivers. But it's engaging. There's stuff to see.
Yeah, I mean,
every 30 seconds the video flips, and there's
Right.
something new. They work hard at it.
Well, and I think it would be an interesting exercise to bring on a show that looks like a podcast, like the host of a show that looks like a podcast on YouTube, but isn't a podcast, and have them come on and talk about that process and that experience.
Sure.
I would love to do that and ask them why they don't put their show out in audio form. I mean, a lot of them could. I'm not sure why they don't.
Yep. I'm not surprised. When I saw that article, I kind of skipped it, didn't even read it. I said, I already know. Already knew.
Right.
I'm like, okay, tell me something I didn't know. They should have hired the Greenlee Cochran consulting firm and paid us $100,000, and we would have told them exactly the results they would have got.
Yeah.
Slate has a great bevy of podcast.
Yeah.
I don't listen to NPR podcasts, but I'm hearing they have a great slate of podcasts.
Yeah.
Okay.
That they do.
So
Yeah.
why? Because they thought they were going to be able to make a lot of money on YouTube.
And why, after all these years, do we not really know the answer to that question? Why a show succeeds on YouTube?
Watch 100 YouTube channels and successful YouTube channels, you'll figure it out. The personalities are different.
I suppose
They're exciting. They're running around. They're doing stupid stuff. They're jumping off buildings. They're.
Well, some of them aren't, Todd. Some of them are doing kind of like what we're doing.
Okay.
Here.
Well, again, that's maybe where they born and they put all their energy into building an audience. And they usually had some celebrity as a kingpin they had, not all of them, but a lot of them had someone that was well known, brought an audience.
That, and they got caught up in the YouTube algorithm.
Logarithm. Yep. YouTube promoted them.
Right. That's a huge thing.
We've been doing better on our YouTube numbers since I started actually putting more effort into the descriptions and the titles. A little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've had a gain of 1. I think I've seen 1 follow in the last 5 days. A lot of people listening, but not many people clicking follow. Because that's a term we don't use in this show.
Right. So the company that we were kind of referring to of why, this whole topic of brand safety and moderation of podcasting came up is this company that's partnered with a couple, or at least one of the brand suitability platforms, called NewsGuard. It's a news reliability data service.
Sure.
Has announced its entry into podcasting today. It says that the company says it's the world's first journalist vetted podcast credibility rating service.
So there was a comment I made. Let me see if I can find. The question I had was, where is it? Makes me wonder if they have humans or AI doing the ratings. That was my. If they
plan on doing it across a large numbers of shows, of course it's going to be an algorithm.
So that was not clear. But again, after I read that article, this podcast credibility ratings, it sounds to me like it sounds to me like the censorship brigade is here.
Todd, okay, here's some text from the press release. It says NewsGuard has already partnered with 3 of the largest podcast streaming platforms. Which will inform their business partners of the availability of NewsGuard's ratings. So 3 of the largest podcast streaming platforms. I didn't even know we had podcast
Me,
streaming.
me neither.
platforms.
They probably term that as because they don't know the difference. They don't know what a podcast really is. They call it a streaming. So Libsyn. Who else? 3 of the largest. Libsyn would be one.
No, I think it's more listening platforms. Libsyn doesn't do streaming.
Listening platforms.
No, I said streaming platforms. I think these are listening platforms.
Okay, so say that again. Then how did they quote that?
It says NewsGuard has already partnered with 3 of the largest podcast streaming platforms. So a podcast hosting platform is not a streaming
but
platform.
Apple wouldn't do this.
I think Spotify and iHeart might.
Probably, but they're not. Well, they're not the biggest. Sorry.
Well, of course they are, Todd. Didn't you get the press release?
I got the press release.
Yeah. Yeah. So it says here, target only trustworthy podcasts by filtering based on overall score or risk level. For example, only buying ads on podcasts that score 7 or above or receive a lowest risk rating.
And I read their criteria on how you get scored, and you can't do misinformation. But again,
it says avoid advertising on podcasts that regularly convey false information.
Who's the judge? Who's the judge? They're the judge. What's true and false?
Right. It says avoid
red flag.
Avoid advertising on heavily biased or politically slanted news shows.
And who's the judgment of that? Red flag.
Well, I mean, it's obvious. The question here is, which way does the platform view as slanted? Is it
if you've got a whole
right?
bunch of people that are, far right working for the thing, they're going to consider anything, vice versa, that's too far. So, there's biases.
I mean, it's going to split the advertisers across shows that are considered to be left-leaning, or right-leaning. So that's how this is going to work.
Well, I tell you what, you big shows are getting big dollars. You better stand up and fight back a little bit.
Well,
have some gumption. And stand up and say, no, we're not going to be subject to monitors.
This is interesting. It has a breakdown. It says, to illustrate the process, NewsGuard is making a rating and associated nutritional label available publicly for the following 5 podcasts. Okay. So Wall Street Journal's The Journal received a green 10 out of 10. Which is up sign.
And
right?
they're perfect in all their content.
Right, exactly. It's the Wall Street Journal. And Crooked Media's Pod Save America received a green 9 out of 10 score. Okay, so they're
interesting.
They're still good.
So which way does Pod Save America lean politically?
I believe left.
Left.
Right.
Okay, so got a green. All right, here we go.
Okay, Sirius XM's Megyn Kelly show received a green 8 out of 10.
Okay, so she's definitely right.
Right. So, I guess green it depends on which side of the political aisle
they had to keep the bias out in their press release. So what's the ones that went red?
The MSNBC platform, the Read Out podcast, which received a red 5 out of 10 score.
Who hosts the Readout?
I believe it's her name is Reed is her last name.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember her first name, but it tends to be a left-leaning, extreme left-leaning show.
All right, then who's the other red? You haven't probably got another right show then.
Yeah, I do. It's Louder with Crowder.
Okay, is he?
I think you know who he is.
Yeah. So
he received a red 5 out of 10 score. So
Had to have one in the left, had one in the right in
one on the
red,
right.
and had to have one in the left and one in the right green, and then Wall Street Journal. Oh yeah, they're oh my
That's
god,
exactly what they did here.
they're
is that,
fawning over.
all all 5 of these shows were left, right, left, right, left, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, there was no cherry picking there whatsoever.
Yeah.
None.
Yeah.
So now imagine being those 2 shows that got a red and being told, "Oh, you can't have no advertising no more because this independent group thinks you're biased." Well, yes, I do a
that's
right-leaning
probably-
show. I am biased. I do a left-leaning show. Yes, I am biased. This is my content. Pack sand.
Yeah, I mean, if a buyer just looks at that and says, that got a red 5 out of 10, I don't feel safe buying in that show.
Oh my
But
gosh.
do I know why it got that rating?
No.
Maybe that's part of their bigger, data poll that
Right.
they do and output.
But
right?
again, did a bot do this or did a human do this? And if a human did it, so there's issues here. So let's say a human listened to this show and said, "Oh, that was biased. Oh, that was wrong." Or, and they went through. And then, so you got human bias in there. Then let's say the machine does it. Then you got machine bias in there.
Right.
Why? This stuff is getting way too ridiculously. At what level? Am I going to be sitting in my chair in a few years? And over here on the right will be a little machine. And I'll say, "Screw that." And out comes a ticket for $25. Or I say, "I'm not going to do that." Out comes a machine for $100. Is this where we're going with creating content?
That's an interesting analogy, Todd.
Because if you live in Europe, that might be the case.
Right. Yeah, to some degree, that's probably true. Okay, it does kind of run through a rating criteria and process.
Keep talking real
outline
quick. I got to
here.
do something real fast, Rob. Go ahead.
Okay.
I forgot to lock the
Okay.
front door.
Oh, okay. There's 5 journalistic criterias in this. Does not convey false, unchallenged data or information. That's 4 points. Conveys news on important topics responsibly, gets 3 points. It does not, is not dominated by one-sided opinion, only 1 point. Discloses or does not have a political agenda, 1 point. Differentiates advertising and commercial partnerships from editorial content, 1 point. So it is taking into account the blending of advertising and commercial messaging in the editorial content, which is interesting connection there.
Well, let's throw in a Blueberry ad here real quick and have a point taken away. As I said, I'm leaning back here in the chair a little bit.
Yeah, but what's considered false or unchallenged information?
Right. Who's the judge of that?
And is there any bias in that?
Right. It's a bill of goods.
Does that lean left or does that lean right?
I'm in the wrong business. I should have been in the censorship business. Seems like there's lots of money in the censorship business. Because everyone just wants to censor and, they can't say that, you can't say this, and we have to be, gentle.
Yeah, because it doesn't seem to penalize a show. I mean, it seems to not, let's say, is this, these are positive points. It says the content only gets 1 point if it's not dominated by a one-sided opinion.
It only gets 1 point.
If it's not dominated by one side.
So is a lower score better?
I would say a higher score is better. So, yeah.
I think we're
It's one.
Those that love
0 through 10.
Those that love the advertising business, those that want to fill their pockets and extract more dollars out of everything are going to love this system. But at the same time, I keep saying this, I'll say it again. Those of you in the advertising business, as you employ these tools and bend to the will of advertisers that want all this data, you're going to reap what you sow. Be careful what you wish for.
I guess it depends on your agenda, right?
Mm-hmm. Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. So
I'm not doing it.
You
I'm
know,
not doing it.
Here's content moderation coming into podcasting.
If someone wants to contact my company and said that a first name, last name, I don't even want to make up a name anymore because I'm going to offend somebody with that name. First name, last name said they're going to kill somebody on a show. I'll take it. I'll pay attention to that. Or if they say
Right.
something that breaks my terms of service, I'll pay attention to that and we will go investigate independently. But I am not going out and seeking content because guess what? As soon as I start adding moderation to my platform, which I'm not going to do, by the way, I lose all protection.
That is another good point. I think you do.
I do. I lose all protection.
Okay. Here's a couple more quotes. It says podcast streaming platforms can also use these ratings to moderate content on their platforms
Interesting.
and promote highly trustworthy news and information podcasts in user searches in curated sections. So it's already being used for this purpose, just like what we were talking about. It's not just advertising. So
you have to have an absolute G show. You can't have an opinion.
if you do, you're going to not going to get featured, promoted, or you're not going to get as much advertising.
Rob.
And it's going to be advertisers from specific advertisers that are only looking for that extreme view.
If you'd have told me 10 years we were going to be having this conversation today, I'd have said you're absolutely insane. My head hurts.
And to add another layer here, it says NewsGuard's global team of misinformation experts.
Oh, vetted by who?
Okay, we'll have rated the top 200 news podcasts on the largest streaming platforms by January of 2024. These podcasts comprise the bulk of overall news and information podcast listenership and present valuable audiences for brands to reach. So the top 200 shows are going to be content moderated and rated for misinformation coming up by January of 2024.
Be careful what you wish for.
6-7 months from now.
Yeah. So my tech show, can we include in that news listing?
Well, the top 200 shows, news shows.
Well, I have a news show, Geek News.
I don't know. What I want to know is, do all 200 of these shows know that this is happening to them?
I think if I knew my show was in the top 200 news category, I'd be asking my provider that I'm working with, are you spying and are you indexing my content and putting a rating by this outfit on my podcast?
Yeah.
That's what I would do. I'd be asking that question.
Yeah.
And if you are, and you have no relationship with these folks, I would demand them to cease doing that. I would take legal action.
Okay, it also says that consumers can subscribe to this service too. It says here, by purchasing a subscription to NewsGuard, which costs $4.95 a month, includes access to NewsGuard's browser extension for Chrome, Safari, and Firefox, and its mobile application to rate content for consumers. That's another aspect of this that's coming that maybe isn't generally known. So your listeners are going to get access to it too.
Right.
Potentially, but they're going to have to pay for it. Which isn't, I hadn't thought about that angle before.
Those of you listening to this show, does this scare you? Are you concerned, or say, this is just business as normal? This is what we're doing, Dodd. This is what we're come to. We're all in. We're paying for these services. What say you?
I don't know that the industry decided that we were going down this path. I mean, who decided this?
Someone came in with a product and says, we're here to help. We're like the
Mhm.
government. We're here to help. And we have a solution for you.
Yeah,
because you have a problem.
Too much misinformation in podcasting.
You have a problem. You have a
Yeah.
problem out here. Look at these 5 shows we found on your platform. Look at what they're doing. They're causing you problems. You're going to have an issue.
You're not going to get the advertisers, so you need to.
You need to go up there and clean this up. We're going to help you clean it up for the low cost of $1 million a year.
Yeah, I'm sure it's costing these streaming podcasting platforms.
I can't
Which
fight
is-
it.
which is
If
interesting.
you make it. I want to see the list of the companies that are actually employing this company. That's what I want to see. Then I want the podcasters that are participating in this, maybe involuntarily, make a decision whether or not maybe they want to stop their relationship with these folks. Will they have the guts to do it?
Well, it also says in 2022, NewsGuard began rating television news and information programs and networks using criteria similar to those used to score websites, but adapted for the video medium. So they're doing this already for television and OTT news programming.
Over the top, that stuff that's like on your Roku and Fire Stick and stuff like that.
But does that, there's Rumble on there. I'm sure they're not adopting this technology.
Or are they scanning it and saying, hey, these 10 shows over there are horrible? Therein lies the challenge.
Right. Yeah.
Utilization by intimidation.
Yeah. I was just surprised to see in their press release that there were already 3 major streaming podcasting platforms that are already signed on the dotted line for this. Well, those streaming platforms haven't announced this publicly, have they?
No.
Is there something to hide here?
Well,
it's an interesting question.
Yes, it is. And of course, no one's going to answer that. And that's why weren't these companies that they're working with publicly named? Because they were told by the companies that they're contracting them, don't say our name.
Right.
Don't put us in your press release. If this was something good for the community, good for podcasters, those groups would have been said, yes, please name us. They didn't.
Well, they did name those shows.
Well, they named the shows, but the shows may have gotten named involuntarily.
Yeah.
If I'd gotten a red, though, I might be contacting my lawyer.
Yeah.
Seriously. If someone came and said this show got scanned and is unsafe and publicly said we got a red rating because of some percepted ideas, I don't think I'd stand for that.
I didn't see any. Okay, here's the website is at newsguardtech.com. So if you have an interest in taking a little
No,
visit to their website
nope,
to
not going
learn,
to get many traffic.
just to learn about them.
Oh, need to start speaking up. You all need to start carrying the torch here a little bit. We're giving you information for you to make an educated decision on, or go find like information that you want. And you need to start bringing this up on social and your inner circles, talking about whether this is good for us or not.
NewsGuard is based in New York City, and their tagline is the Internet Trust Tool.
How about I won't say it. In my opinion, okay.
Yeah.
Again,
what's going on.
I go back to my comment that I said earlier. Is this if this is being done by a bunch of individuals and no bots, then how do you remove biases from individuals?
I think it might be helpful to go look at who their board of directors are and who's funding this. And
Sounds like they're being very successful. They've already applied it against TV. Podcasting was the next market. But why news? Was it just because news is the most controversial?
I think it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
It tends to be more political. It tends to be more
But
journalistic, right?
But when does it get down into the home garden show?
Very easily.
Yeah, when's it go into a dog training show, or a financial advice show, or iOS show, or a self-help show? When does it get in there and you start doing this to those types of shows? I'm a little cynical today. Just a itty bitty little bit.
Yeah, I'm looking at who's on the board of directors of the organization and where they come from. I don't know. I was just trying to make sure that they have a balanced representation. I don't know that they do.
So where we go next, Rob?
I don't know. Where do you go after that?
It just makes me exhausted. And again, I've seen some of these systems, and out of curiosity, I've looked at, well, I think now 3, and just because of my curiosity level and what I see, I don't care for.
Right.
And I'll give credit. One of the platforms said, "Well, we can back the logarithm off." We can back things off so it's not as strict. But okay, then it's affected by Todd's bias. So I'm for sure not the one that should set any line on anything.
So I did find a little brief description of a white paper case study that they have on the website. It says how we operationalize our misinformation fingerprints using AI tools.
Oh.
So it says NewsGuard partnered with Blackbird.ai, an artificial intelligence company that monitors online discourse around harmful narratives, to test how NewsGuard's fingerprints could be paired with AI to detect misinformation at scale across the web. The test surfaced a wide range of instances of both hoaxes on Twitter, YouTube, and the open web. including large pages and accounts that had not been flagged by social media companies, fact checkers.
Here's my issue. If you even said the word or the phrase, the Rona came from Wuhan, from an institute whose name had the word coronavirus in it, if you even mentioned that was the origin point, guess what happened to you? You were delisted. You're called a crackpot, called all kinds of crazy things, and yet the narrative changes 18 months later where, probably. So
here's another quote off the website too. How the State Department and U.S. Cyber Command uses misinformation fingerprints to track state-sponsored disinformation. So there's a reference in here to a joint U.S. State Department and U.S. Department of Defense program seeking solutions that would help the agencies evaluate disinformation narratives, themes in near real time.
So they can send takedown notices to Twitter because it didn't fit their story. Yeah, see, I'm just going to get pissed off here. I'm not saying this company did that, by the way. Just where
this is on their this is on their website. So NewsGuard won a contest from the National Security Innovation Network, a joint U.S. State Department and U.S. Department of Defense program seeking solutions to evaluate disinformation narratives and themes in real time.
Well,
online.
Again.
So that's who we're working with here.
Stuff that can be considered disinformation today can be proved to be true tomorrow. And this is where I go back. You should be allowed to say what you're going to say, and you make your own personal educated judgment whether or not you want to buy into it. When did we have to have this big brother oversight control?
Well, I guess when people say things that.
But the thing is,
big organizations don't like to hear said.
Well,
right.
And if you're a big streaming platform and you don't want that content on there, please start killing a lot of it.
Yeah.
And then those that have been kicked off your system will live another day because they have an open RSS feed. And they will be able to continue to say and discuss what they so choose according to their freedom of speech right.
They do have a page on their website that talks about in detail the ratings categories for podcasts. It's on their website right now. So it gets into much deeper detail.
Well,
on what they're doing here.
And they're not the only ones doing analysis on podcast content. I'm just saying that.
No,
right. A lot more.
But
and I know there are
pretty big.
And I know there are networks that are buying into services like this that do this for them as well. Big podcast networks are doing this against content in their networks today. And I can only imagine the internal discussions that are going on where the memo comes down from brand safety telling such and such producer, you need to be quiet on this, or you need to stop talking about this, or you need to rephrase this. You can't say this anymore. You can't say this word. You can't talk about this company. You can't talk about this topic. I am sure that is happening today.
Yeah. So I don't know what the takeaway from this, Todd, is that it's content moderation is coming to podcasting is what it shows me. And we've been claiming it to be the last bastion of free speech, but maybe
The
maybe
only
those days are numbered.
Oh, no, they're not. The only reason
Well,
it will remain.
From the proprietary platforms.
Right.
Right.
For those that have an RSS feed, where there are no gatekeepers, you might be censored or shut up and you might lose advertising dollars, but you'll still have the right to say what you want to say, as long as you control your RSS feed.
Well, yeah. Let's hope that remains the case. So,
But I would imagine a lot of these folks that are with these big networks are just talent. They don't own the shows.
right.
So they have to toe the line when the program manager comes down and said, hey, you're hurting the advertising dollars by talking about X, Y, or Z.
Here's a NewsGuard investors. That's an interesting list.
So they're, if they've got the 3 biggest podcast streaming platforms on, they're doing very well.
Right.
And if they're doing TV and they start with TV, that's a whole different level of money. Almost more money in censorship and monitoring than there is in content creation.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here. I was going to look up the number 1 investor in NewsGuard. Let's see if I can find this person.
Again, people will invest in a lot of things to make money. So I don't ever blame people for investing money.
Right. No, but it does point to priorities, right?
But again, Rob, this is one of many companies that are doing this kind of thing. This is not.
No, it's big. It's big business now.
Yeah.
Content moderation is big business.
And I hope it's not content moderation. I hope it's more content analysis. And then those that are tied into that.
Well, once the data is gathered, it can be used for lots of different purposes, right?
Well, it can be, it could force someone to change the tone of their show.
Yeah. If they want to grow their revenue, a new strategy is going to be take out anything controversial out of your show.
Boy, this show would be left with about 5 minutes of content.
Well, we normally don't go into areas like this, so this isn't normal for us. But I do think that the industry needs to be aware of what's happening.
Yeah. They have to. Leadership, it's the podcasters that may not know. People that are running companies are getting inundated with these companies saying, hey, we can help you for a problem we think you have already. I look
think
at
it's
my
interesting. Yeah.
Go look at my inbox. And most of the stuff I delete, I don't even respond to.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at a list of investors in the company.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like 26 investors. I can't, a lot of them are individuals. They don't list any affiliations with anything to know, what they have. So you'd have to look up the person's name because there's no links to any information on any of them.
So one thing's for sure, Rob. We've annoyed a few listeners talking about AI.
Probably. Yeah.
So
but it's not our job here to placate everybody.
Right.
This is being publicly done. It was announced and listed in Pod News.
Yep.
Just a couple days ago. So I think it's fair game to talk about it.
Sure.
James thought it was an important thing to cover.
Yeah, but did he express an opinion? I don't think so. I think he just reported on it.
He did.
I
Yeah,
guess if
that's all he did.
you're trying to stay neutral, that's what you do. You report it and you don't give an opinion. But he hasn't been shy to give an opinion on other things. So
Yeah, that's true. From what I can tell from his post it wasn't even a post that would even probably raise any kind of alarm either.
Don't eat me, James Cridland.
mhm.
So there's probably a lot of people that didn't really pay attention to it.
Well, it was enough for me to make a comment. I saw it.
Yeah, I saw it too.
I was just one of
So-
those who go, Yeah, again, my main question was it human or was it AI that was doing this judgment? Because most of the systems I've seen so far are using some sort of,
AI technology.
and I'm just going to call it analysis technology. I don't
Well-
want to use the word AI, analysis technology.
Just about anything now that has any kind of an algorithm running on it, people are throwing the term AI on it. So
But just, and I think Dave Jones made a good comment on the Podcasting 2.0 show. People need to continue to remember this is a language model. And the language model is just that. We can't be bringing too much, it has the ability to manipulate language and write things. So please, when it comes to analysis, it is a language model.
And based on what I've seen, it doesn't paint the picture from two sides. It's not unbiased, is what I'm saying.
The key, I don't want to even get into that, but I think the key here is to understand that I'm not writing anything in it that is politically charged, so it's not like
it's the output that comes out of it. Because I've seen it, you ask it a question about, media sources that you can trust, and it'll output that only trust reliable sources, mainstream sources, government website sources.
I'm not using it. I'm not asking it those kinds of questions because it's a language model. Okay,
Right, so it's going to spit out what it knows.
It's not making an opinion. It's giving you a list of what's in its. Yet, so here, it's a. I don't ever ask it raw questions. I don't use it that way. I feed it something. Anyway,
And
so
then it analyzes that.
we'll stop. We don't need to go into that anymore today.
That's enough. I think we've kind of upset some listeners because we spent too much time on
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I hope you enjoyed the change of pace today. Did we give you something to think about?
Yeah.
One thing is for sure, we can never be said that we're not in favor of open RSS.
No, that would be a mischaracterization of both of us.
That's right. And I think we can both believe that advertising can equal censorship. Self-censorship.
Well, it's looking like it.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So
and that, the industry just needs to be aware that these technologies are rapidly being deployed in the industry.
mhm.
Yeah. I just don't think most people realize it.
Again, it's not deep. It's at the top level currently. So, because this isn't necessarily inexpensive, especially if they're using part human, part AI, that's a very expensive task to go in and the thing is, a show's rating could change from episode to episode. That's the thing too. How are they going to rank? It's at the show level now.
Yeah, but YouTube's doing it.
Well,
Facebook's
they're doing it at the episode level.
There's no reason why these guys couldn't do it too.
Yeah.
On certain large funded platforms.
It to me, again, I'm in the business of letting podcasters have a voice, saying what's on their mind, allowing them to express freedom of speech.
Mhm.
As long as you don't violate my terms where you say you're going to go and hurt or kill someone, very rare for me to kick somebody off the platform. Very, very rare. I kick a lot of scammers off the platform. Had quite a bit of that, fighting that battle recently. Just, knuckleheads creating accounts and trying to do stupid things. So everyone's always wishing to push an angle. So
I just did a episode of my Trust Factor podcast just prior to this show, and I was talking about trusting sources of information. Where can you? How should you look at sources of information, and what sources, and how should you evaluate that?
well, you definitely don't listen to the
trust.
mainstream media.
Exactly, but
Go to
I think-
TikTok.
right.
And watch the video clips of the real thing that happened that was reported in that news. Because someone's got a camera out instead of helping these days. I'm just
Yeah, I
kidding
think
here.
I think more independent sources tend to be a little more trustworthy.
Some. But they
Some-
haven't had the
some
logarithm
more than
run. They haven't
others.
had the
Right.
logarithm run against them yet, Rob.
Right. They won't be independent sources for much longer, right? If the algorithm runs out.
Right. It's today I look at everything with a discerning eye. I try
have
to.
now.
Yeah.
I think all of us have, and this is what I talked about on the other show I did, is I think all of us are in a world now where we just can't trust really much of anything. And as individuals, how do we build that trust in others, right? That they can trust us, right? And how do we put ourselves in the world in a way that people can trust? Right?
I think actions.
Can people listening to this show, can they trust what we say?
I think actions speak louder than words. That's a saying that's been around since the beginning of time.
Right.
At least since I was a little kid and I've been on the planet a few rotations around the sun, actions speak louder than words. And I think people's actions and what they do, and pretty much everything you do today can be pretty much easily seen. We live online. I think these and the actions and the things you do as a company and the principles you follow are very, very important.
Yeah. And that's the reason I'm doing that show on trust is that I think that's something that all of us as podcasters need to think about. Is how do we build that trust with the audience?
Be genuine.
Right.
You can be a genuine
Listen
crackpot too.
Be able to listen and have a little bit of a thick skin about what other people say. Listen to other people's opinion. And not be hurt by it.
That's gone. That's gone.
Well, but let's encourage people to bring it back.
It's very, very. Everyone has been taught just dissent and wage war.
Yeah, it's like my way, screw you.
Right.
That's not the way to go about building trust in others in your life.
But Rob, we don't know anything here.
Well, I don't know everything. I'm free.
Well, me too.
I'll freely admit to that, but I've been on the planet a long time. I've seen a lot of stuff. I can give you my opinion. I'm not out here to hurt anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to give, perspective.
But our opinions can be considered hostile.
Well, yeah. Some things can be, if it's different than what you as the other person agree with. Right?
In the end,
you can take it that way, but you don't have to take it that way. That's your choice to take it that way.
Yep. And in the end, I'm a content creator, and I support content creators. And I'm I think just long as we'll say it again, we are very strong advocates of freedom of speech, no matter where you live in the world. Mm-hmm. And I just did a presentation. I'll be presenting next week in Dubai. It's a virtual presentation at a podcast that's out there. Didn't get much time talking about innovation in podcasting, and I tried to put back into that even that little 15 minutes I had to talk about, remember, podcasting's open. It's not controlled by gatekeepers. Podcasting is more than Spotify, and because that's what they need to hear there, because Spotify is dominating the message. And
Right.
So
I think that's great.
And innovation in expanding the space and what we're doing. So as I promised I would do this year, this is what I'm spending my time talking about, people. It's what we're doing in this open podcasting space with no gatekeepers.
Right. Well, there are gatekeepers out there. I think we have to acknowledge that. And, it's okay that they're out there to some degree. I mean, they have a right to be there as well as we have a right to be here expressing our concern.
That's right.
Right.
It's not that we're at war with them. We just have a different opinion.
Right. You can be involved with them or not. You can accept it or not. And that's the way it should be.
Right.
I don't know that that's the way, if you look at like a platform like this NewsGuard thing, I think they're a platform that proponents taking sides. And that's unfortunate, but maybe that's a misrepresentation of what they're doing.
I would think that they're trying to give someone an informed opinion. That's probably...
Well, okay, I'll back up and say maybe I was wrong to pass that judgment. Just say that they're wanting to figure out where the lines are.
But I don't want to.
Right.
I don't want to figure out where the lines are. I want people to have the freedom to choose what they want to listen to, and hope advertisers get a little thicker skin.
Right.
But anyway. Okay. We're done for the day. The next show will be coming to you as live as we can be, if the bandwidth holds up. And I will be the
24th, right?
The 24th. Yep. 2 weeks from today. And
hopefully we'll have on a representative of all the content at the podcast show.
That'd be awesome.
In London, live, just after the first day event there.
Get a recap of what's going on at the show.
Yep.
All right, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm Todd at blueberry.com, BLUBRRY. No E's, because we couldn't afford the E's. At Geek News on Twitter. And
I can be found on Twitter as well, at Rob Greenlee. And you can send me an email if you want, rob.greenlee@gmail.com.
We got to get you on
from you.
We got to get you on the metaverse too, Rob. I'm at Geek News at geeknews.chat on the meta. So at Todd at blueberry.chat on the meta as well. So 2 different locations.
Yeah, I haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
So
all right, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Some new platform.
It's Mastodon.
It is.
So,
right.
All right, everybody. We'll see you later. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Yep.